start recording. My screen is visible, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, today we'll start by discussing a bit about this interview question that Mrityunjay gave, and I thought that we should all discuss on what the best approach could be for solving, or I did a bit of study by myself also into this, right? Because file upload, like uploading, large bulk document is kind of a tricky problem, and we'll talk about why it is tricky, right? What are the performance implications that you might have if you are not doing it correctly, right? I shared a video about Piyush, who is someone I follow a lot, and that should help a bit also, but I'll explain the question first, right? We are building a CMS software. If you know what a CMS is, it's a content management system like WordPress and stuff, right? Just interrupt me if something I'm explaining and you are not understanding, right? So we are building a CMS software, something like a blogging software. Explain to me the functioning of the system for bulk upload, right? So what happens in CMS is you sometimes upload bulk files into, like, it's content management, right? So you upload bulk contents, bulk videos, or here we are taking the case of an Excel file, right? So let's say users have an Excel file of a couple million rows which have customer data, and they have to upload that file in our system. The system has to create a new database record for each row and also update the user on the progress of the upload, as the upload can take a few minutes, right? So let me design the front end, or say that how this front end might look like. So if this is a front end here, basically, like, you can get something like heading, right? This is the upload percentage, right? And then you have a bar, something like a, okay, we are at 10, really great, really happy. uh bar, sorry, bar. So this is like a, okay, like this, perfect. So you get like a bar, right? That, hey, 10% has been uploaded, 20% has been uploaded, right? When you are uploading some large content, right? So like this, you get an upload percentage when you're uploading a large file, right? So the interviewer has asked that our system has to create a new DB record for each row. So you have an Excel file which is basically like row after like row call, like comma separated list of rows, and then you are uploading it, and then it's for each row in the Excel file. It's basically going to create all the each row is a entry in the database, right? So explain the database schema you will use. And what he has said is, Mrityunjay, are you in the call? Yeah, you are in the call.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said that I tried to explain using parallel and batch processing. We can upload data for our database. We can create a table for recording the progress, and with the help of WebSocket, we can update the user about the upload process, right? So I think it's mostly correct, right? We'll discuss a bit more in depth about this, right? So what happens is when you are uploading, um, now, yeah, okay. So now we when you are let's say you have a file, like, you have a, just a minute. Okay, someone else is joining. Okay, so let's say you have a file. Okay, let's take this post-it note. Okay, so this is a file, Excel file of 1 GB, right? A very big Excel file, right? So this file resides on my disk, right? It's residing on my computer, and I have a script, right? I have a script. I want to process this file, right? So I want to process it into, let's say I want to zip this file, or I want to process this file in some way, right? So now I don't have a 1 GB RAM, right? I don't have a 1 GB RAM. So how do you think I can process this file if I don't have a 1 GB RAM? How can I zip this entire file? Because if I have to process this file, a general way is that I'm going to put it slowly into the RAM, and then I'm going to do those low level operations, right? We have Excel, Node Excel, or something like that for processing, right? So, how do you process it if you don't have a 1 GB RAM? Can anyone answer to me?
Maybe we should process it in chunks.
Exactly, we take it in chunks, right? Now, if you see, right, when we are doing it in chunks, right, you are taking a chunk out of it and you are processing that chunk, right? So but let's just say it's something like a video stream, a video file, like that is encoded, right? So when you are taking it in chunk, right, you are not getting the right kind of data, right? You are getting some piece of a chunk from different here to here. You're getting a piece of encoded data, right? That's meaningless, right? So but for CSV values, so for CSV values like 1 2 3 4 like this, the chunk makes sense. If you're taking a first part of the chunk, it makes sense, right? So now for decoding this kind of data, right, when you are taking small chunks out of a large file and you're decoding that, so you need to have a specific library for that specific extension then, because the decoding of chunk by chunk and not the entire file is very much dependent on the low level uh, shit, right? Basically, like if you're taking an Excel file which is a comma separated value, so if you're decoding that, right, you need some library that is good with that knows that okay, this is a chunk I've taken in, it's a comma separated value, so this is how I am going to decode that, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So for Excel, you have an Excel package. For zip also you have a zip package. But if the chunk is something else, if it is a video stream, right, then there is no such package. If you look, right, there is no
Mhm.
such package for that. Maybe Netflix has created their own system for doing that, right? Some org has created their own system. Depending on the need, you need to have knowledge of low level things, right? So for a solution to this specific problem that you have encountered, right, one of the things, okay, uh, how many of you know about durable functions in Azure? Just raise your hand. Okay, very few people. So durable functions in Azure are long running functions, right? So they take this file, let's say this is a 1 GB file, right? So AWS is also the same thing, right? I will explain in AWS also. In AWS, you put this file, you write a stream, right? You write a stream function in Node.js. So we have something like node stream, I think, node stream or something. So using a node stream, you upload this one file and you break it into chunks, and those chunks go into S3 bucket, right? And then in S3 bucket, you create that Excel file. So your memory is low and you create that Excel file. Then you have a lambda function, and that lambda function will have a memory capacity of 1 GB. You're going to run that lambda like that, and that is going to take this Excel file and it's going to process that Excel file, right? That's the way image processing or something like that is done. You basically put it into an S3, and then you use a lambda where the lambda takes it in memory and processes it, right? You need to take a lambda that has a sufficient memory size. Now let's talk about that's the first step of the way, right? That lambda is how do you deal with memory issues and stuff like that, right? If it's let's say a 4 GB file and you want to process it into let's say 1 GB lambda, then you first need to break this in memory into 4 1 GB files, then you then you pass it into a lambda, and then you process it. That is a limitation of the system that we work with, right? Once it moves to the S3, the lambda that processes it always has to have a memory size that is greater than the file that it's processing it, okay? And the ratio should be like 2x or something. Okay, now the second part of the problem, right? So our system has to create a new DB record for each row and update the user on the progress of the upload, as the upload can take a few minutes, right? So you take a big Excel file, right? The first thing that the Lambda should do is break the big Excel file into smaller chunks, right? Let's say chunks of 10,000 rows, and it can store it as Excel file, but the preferred way is it stores it as JSON files, right? So it creates the JSON file, which is a parse data, and it stores it in a temp folder. Okay, and then the system creates a new DB record. So then it picks up this one folder and it does an operation where it's going to basically pull, it's going to asynchronously do this operation where it's going to push it into the database, right? And when it's pushing into the database, it also, once that operation is done, it's going to establish a WebSocket connection, and all this operation, whichever whatever is happening, there is a WebSocket connection that would be established between the Lambda and the front end, right? And whenever something is being processed, it's sending an upload uh, percentage that hey, this much has been uploaded. Now one thing is, you can have a WebSocket or you can have long polling also, because this is the front end. It does not really matter what you do, right? You can just have it poll 20 times and see that if it's getting updated or not, right? Trade-offs, what I can think of, trade-off between let's say long polling versus WebSocket in this circumstance, right? If I am using something like long polling, so this you can maintain that existing HTTP connection. You don't need an WebSocket on the server side, right? You can just have an API slash something, right, on the Lambda function, and you hit the API and it gives you the result. WebSocket is a whole different level of complexity. Now you have to implement a WebSocket on the server, you have to implement a WebSocket on the client. It's a lot of headache, right? You don't want that headache in a simple case like this. But again, you can use WebSocket if you want. But then upload, and then it's updating the progress, right? And also, if you don't use WebSocket or long polling, you can always you can always see that okay, the upload is not happening for a long time. I'm polling it again and again. I might want to take some action from the front end itself and tell them maybe discard the old data and re-upload data, right? So that's also something you can do. And then okay, parallel and batch processing, we can upload data again. You can do this using we can create a table, and with the help of WebSocket we can update the user about the upload process, right? So I think this should be a fair enough solution, right? um, like we discussed all the trade-offs and everything. So uh, Nityunjay, is this question clear to you?
Yeah, like a follow-up question, the interview also asked
Okay.
on this, like after I explained the batch processing,
Yeah.
he asked basically, like for example, the half of the data is like processed into the database, and for some reason our server got crashed or something. Then
Exactly.
what should happen?
Exactly. So that's why I said what happens is, first there are processes that we break this into, like uploading a 1 GB Excel file. What we do is, first, and I'm telling you this from my practical experience, I've done this in my previous company where we had these durable functions in Azure. What we do is we take this 1 GB Excel file, right? The first operation is taking this Excel file to your S3 bucket, right? That's the first operation. You do it using stream. If it breaks at any point, you discard all the whatever you have taken and you do it again. Okay, done. First operation done. Second operation, your Excel file exists in the S3 bucket, right? And now you have your Lambda function, Lambda server, right? Now what your Lambda server is going to do is, it's going to read from that Excel file, and your Lambda needs to take the whole thing in memory. Okay, because now that your Excel file is in the S3 bucket, if it has to read, it needs to take the whole thing in memory, right? And it needs to split that into JSON files. It needs to split it into uh, 20, 200,000 small JSON files, right? And at any point of time, if it's gone, Then the first thing that it does is when it wakes up, right, it's also writing to a table, right, it's writing to a table that, hey, I am now processing this excel file. This is the first json chunk, this is the second json chunk, this is the third json chunk, right? And now it went, the server crashed, right, the server crashed, and now you're restarting the server, right? And now you're restarting, it's seeing that, okay, the end of the chunk is not written, right? So what it's going to do is discards all of them, and it again starts the process, and then it takes all the chunks, right? It stores that all the json files are stored in a temp file. Now your third process starts, right? First three processes are clear.
Yeah.
First three processes are clear. Third process start, it has all those files. It's just going to go through one of them, and it's going to pull that json file up, and it's going to insert that json file into the database, right? And at you can also always update using websocket. You can always but I prefer long polling, and websockets are almost never used, because when you use websocket, you need to accommodate websocket at both your lambda function and your local device, right? That's an additional headache for this use case, when you can just poll it from, when you're polling it, it's just one API you expose here, one API you expose there. Why do you want to take that headache, right? So it just polls and gets the responses, what's the upload status, and it processes one json file. It just pushes to the db through simple insert operation. If the server breaks at any point, it you just discard, you have simple lock-in procedures, right? So that's the entire way that something like this. See, file uploads are very common question, right? So whenever you get file upload, that's the way you do it, right? The things that you should keep in mind is what is the memory at any point of time, right? Like I said, if it's a 1 GB file that you are taking from your local device to your server, then if it's a 1 GB file at the s3 bucket, then always the lambda that you are going to spin off, or the durable function that you are going to spin off, should have a memory that is above 1 GB. Otherwise it's not a, you won't be able to process, right? A lambda is serverless, it spins up the memory on the go. So but makes sense, right?
Okay. But
Yeah.
uh, when we are processing this into the DB,
Okay.
we are basically processing individual JSON file. Now, let's say, for example, the JSON file have the data of 10,000 rows.
Okay.
So the 10,000 rows will be will go together to the DB, or like they will go usually row by row.
Yeah, so basically you can do bulk inserts, right? Bulk inserts are what we do, but it shouldn't be 10,000 rows. We try to keep it like 500 rows at max, because again, when you have 10,000 rows that you're inserting, there's like collisions that might happen, right? You're inserting in parallel into the db, right? So you'll come up with 200 rows that don't fall into, and then you push that again, and then again some collision happens. It's always better to break it into very small chunks, 200 300 rows, and then you push it through bulk insert, and you're just pushing you're pushing a lot of operations in parallel. And then if then you can implement retry logic in that operation, right? So your retry logic becomes very simple. You push, some error happens, you push the whole thing again, right, until it works. So because it's a bulk insert operation, either the whole thing goes in or nothing goes in, right? But again, those are low level details, right? From a high level perspective, I think this answer should be good enough, right? Don't you think?
Okay.
Yeah. uh, so that was the question, right? So like, did you make it through the interview?
Yeah, like the interview didn't seem satisfied. Maybe my explaining maybe like it got blank. I got blank on some points. I got blank on some follow-up questions too.
Okay, understood.
Basically, that can be the reason.
Yeah, when you get blanked, that's why he basically wanted to test. So your answer is not incorrect in a lot of cases when we give answers, we don't give like incorrect answers, but what happens is he's also trying to see if you mugged that answer up, or if you have actually encountered a situation where you have used that answer, or where is that answer coming from, right? So like in my case, I've actually done this kind of things, right? We had so we had a what do they say, a chat we had something like our agents, right, who would go out to the field and they would take these pictures and everything, right, and they would put it in a form, and that form would get uploaded uh, on our server, right? So that is how we used to process. We put them in durable functions, and then we did the processing, and then we moved them to JSON, and then we some pictures would go to cloudinary, right, which is basically CDN, like we said, CDN is everywhere, and then the images would go to JSON and they would be pushed to the database, right? So yeah, this is a question where you can get to learn a lot, and it's going to come a lot, right? So if anyone did not understand, please please tell.
But like,
Okay.
do you think this is a valid question for a like 1 year of experience role?
I have 3 year of experience. See, the reason I'm teaching you these things, right, is I want you to be the best, right? So you don't ask question like, is this a good question for 1 year of experience, right? But I'm teaching you this, right? So you
Mhm.
should have this now, right? So now if it comes, you should know this, because I'm teaching you and I'm going in very much depth into it, right? And we have
Mhm.
people in this cohort who have 6 years of experience, right? So when I'm teaching you, you have to know everything, right? Whatever I'm teaching, like we did so many system design, we'll do so many more, right? But now if this question comes to you, you should be able to answer it, like that's my expectation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hi, Ramesh.
Yeah, hi Abhijit.
So, for this type of question, suppose in the project I'm working in, so we have something called migration. Okay, so
Okay.
what we do is we put bulk records and we process it in the DB only.
Okay.
So can't we do it like normally when we make a insert statements in the SQL and just through the batch we can process it up in like suppose 30 rows each or 50 rows each like that.
Definitely we can do that. Yeah, what was your question?
No, for this problem statement only, can't we answer like this only? Because without using AWS, can't we just tell that okay, we will just uh, make a insert statements through batch and we process these records like 50 at a time or 30 at a time like that.
From your local device?
No, no, from the server, that
So
particular server only.
what server? Where are you hosting the server?
Like anywhere, suppose
AWS
I
is
have a server hosted.
okay.
Suppose a Linux server I have hosted
In
like somewhere.
AWS or Azure, right? Like
Okay,
first.
you're telling that any server will do the same thing. Huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can build your own solutions, but usually people don't use on-premise servers, right? We use AWS or Azure, and then you have to work with their tools, right? You For AWS it's S3 buckets and all that. For Azure it's going to be your durable functions, which is basically the Lambda in Azure, and then you have blob storage for Azure, right? So that's how you build your solutions around AWS and Azure only,
Okay.
right? Unless it's on-prem, then you come up with your own. But I taught this thing, so I'm assuming that anyone who gets it in an interview, 1 year 6 year experience, you guys should be able to do it, right? If not, then I'll teach this again. Okay, now what we are going to do is what we said we'll do today, right? We're going into LLD. So let's get started. So I think we'll do like the basic UML diagrams and stuff, and we will try to write some pseudo code. But obviously it's a 1 hour machine coding round or something, right? So if we have to write the code here itself, it won't be possible. But once this session gets over, right? I will also write code in TypeScript. You all will write code in TypeScript, and then you will send it to me. That this is the code that you guys have written, right? So let's see, where is the text? Okay, so LLD of what was the LLD that we discussed today? We were going to do tic-tac-toe, right? Tic-tac-toe. Right, so we are going to do an LLD of tic-tac-toe, right? Let's think of what are the various classes in something like tic-tac-toe, right? So we have I can think of a board, right? I can think of a board, and then what else can you guys think of? This is an interactive class, you know.
Players.
Players. Okay, so let's understand the expectations first, right? What is a tic-tac-toe, right? I'm going to draw it a bit, right? So this is a tic-tac-toe like this, right? Let's understand it a bit more. Sorry. So like someone does a cross, someone does a circle, right? And then finally once you match 3 on the board, right? You match 3 on the board, and it's basically a win for that person who has the 3 matched. Or so let me write down the basic you know, text. I'm not sure why I'm not getting the text box. Okay, maybe something like this. I just okay. So expectations, right? Sorry about the size, right? There's no dash. Anyways, so expectations are like so first is basic board, right? um, can support um, as many players, can support more than 2 players, right? Not much expectation, can support more than, so there's this circle and star, but let's just say we have 3 players. Each player will have a different sign. Each sign each player gets an ASCII sign, right? ASCII sign. Like someone gets a circle, someone gets a cross, someone gets 1 2, something like that, right? Can support more than 2 players. Each player gets can support multiple players. Let's just make it multiple players. Each player gets an ASCII sign. And then what else? Board is 2D, two-dimensional board, right? Let's make it n cross n, right? Square board, right? And we should be able to detect when the game is a draw, right? So we should be able to detect when the game is a draw, right? Can support multiple players. Board is 2D, and we should be able to detect when the game is a draw. So let's code, right? And I don't want to code test. Let's create a new repository. Not sure now. Create new repository, right? Tic-tac-toe, right? Sorry about this. Okay, so we'll create a new repository, and we'll start. So now the reason why I choose TypeScript is because we're going to write everything in this one file, right? If you were to choose Java, the issue is that you'll mostly have spec flow files, and in machine coding accuracy is very much important. I would want that you choose something where it's just one file, two file, like that, right? So let's write some code together, and we'll do pseudocode, right? So what all can you think of? Class. Let's write first all the classes, right? Class board, right? Board will have all the boards, right? Class player, which is basically each player gets a sign or something like that, right? And the board could be where board, right? It's a double dimensional array. New it's a double dimensional array, right? Board is a double dimensional array. And then actually let's make it like a notepad only, right? So board is a double dimensional array, and then we initialize the board, right? As board, right? And let's say, so what are the various functions that you can think of this board to have? Then we have class player, and then we have class cell, which is basically each cell in the board, right? And player, and then each player will have a move. Okay, yeah, okay. So we have this board, right? And when we are initializing this board, this is a n cross n board, right? So we can pass in integer n, and then we initialize this board as n cross n, right? And like this, right? What are some of the functions that you guys can think of? Anyone?
Maybe it requires some mouse event to like capture mouse event like on clicking it should like pop up some symbol or something.
Can you be a little loud?
Like it should have like a mouse event, capturing mouse event. So when we click it, the symbol should show up.
No, not this is not this is not like you're not designing something like that, right? So yeah, marking one cell, okay. So LLD is something where you are doing it through text, right? So it's like you do like this, like player like function, main function, right? You have a main function, so void main function like this, and this is the root function that you invoke, right? Later you do like main like this, right? So the way that you do this is you do board equals to new board. That's how you initialize a board, right? Cell sorry then you put n as an input. You hard code everything, like player p equals to new player, and then you put the x here, and then player p1 equals to new player, and you put the o here, right? O here. And then you hard code, you write all the moves, right? Like the way that I can think of is p1 dot move, right? You pass the board as an argument, and your move is 0 0, right? P2 dot move, right? 0 1, right? At each point of time, if it's like if it's a check, may if it's like, so your output should be like this: player 1 made a move, right, on 0 0, right? Player 2 made a move on 0 1, right? Player 2 made a move on 0 1, and then player 1 wins. If player 1 wins, then player 1 wins, right? And the game is ended, right? And then if once the player 1 wins, if you do more of this, like p2 dot move, sorry about this, p2 dot move, like here, if this is like player 2 wins, right? Player 2 wins, and if you do one more such move, 1 0 or something like that, then move not permitted, right? Make sense? This is machine coding, right? This is a, let's say this is like a test case that is running.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So this is how you do machine coding, right? So we are just going to define all the functions and write the pseudocode here, and then once we terminate the session, all of you will write the code in TypeScript. I'll also write it myself, right, and we'll share it in the group, because writing the entire code will be a 1 hour exercise. I'm also starting this for the first time, right? So this is a board, right? And then within the board, you have a double dimensional array, and what will be the value of each array, right? We have a double dimensional array of cells, right? And now it's an array of cell, right? So within each cell, yeah. So can we, yeah, totally, you can attempt in your own language, but I would prefer you do it in TypeScript because it's very easy to learn, right? But again, you can give it to me in Java also, I'll understand, right? So this is, we have a double dimensional array of cells, and then each cell is going to be a within each cell, what can you think of, what are the functions that you can think of?
Like each cell can have three values. It can be either blank or one of the two values.
Exactly. So it's an enum value, right? Enum in TypeScript we call it as type, right? In TypeScript we call it as type. So type can be val, right? And initially, let's just say we initialize it with a nan value. Now this nan value basically, so it's a type. It can be it, you can, when you create the cell, you can initialize it with the, you can initialize with it with how many values you want to create, right, in the board, right? When created, initialize all cells with types of values they can contain. Okay, so when you create, initialize all cells with the type of values they can contain, right? Maybe you can have a cell constructor which does this, right? And then you have a board which contains of all the cells. Now this is a player, right? And player will have a select a player has a player will also have a int player sign, right? Player sign, sorry, this is a cell player sign. So player will also, not cell actually, I think this type, right? This enum type is enum, this enum is of type, let's just say um, player player sign, right? This is an player sign type enum, right? And this is also player sign val, right? That because each cell will hold a player sign, right? So I'll keep it enum. In TypeScript it's type, so player sign. And then this will have a player sign p sign, right? Whichever player sign you're assigning to this player, right? You're assigning a 0 or you're assigning an x, right? And then you have a player, right, where which is basically the move, right? So now I will ask you this, right? The move function, whenever you're moving a player, where should that state be maintained? It should be on the player or it should be on the board?
It should be on the board, maybe.
Exactly. uh, so it's not a player dot move, right? Although we can do that also, right? We can do a like a void move on the player also. See, everything is possible, right? But there's something that we are choosing to do just to make it more simple. So you can pass the board b, right? You can pass the board b in here, and this player is moving. So when you're doing it like this, you are basically passing the board to the player, and then you have the value anti x comma integer y, right? The x and y coordinate where you're going to place it, and you write the code for moving. So the advantage here is you don't need to pass the player, you already know the player sign from this move. What's the advantage of putting it here is basically now you can have the move function here also, right? So you have this board b and then int x and then integer y, right? So the advantage here is that you don't need to pass the board. Okay, you need to pass the player p, or you can just pass the enum of the player, right? And but the player p is readed because I can assume that a player apart from his sign might also have an id, but for simplicity, because machine coding is all about accuracy, you just have the, so you have a void move function, right? And very simply we can have a boolean is game over function, right? If the game is over, right? And can we have something like a boolean is game over, right? This can be a boolean, this can also be a integer. So whenever in this move function, the first I can think of is just that if is game over, right? Because if the game is over, then you write that game has been over, right? Boolean, and then there is this function. So whenever you do a move, what you can do is uh, hit this function, right? Now should I hit this function empty, or should I pass a parameter of whatever move has happened in there, right? What should I do?
It can we can pass it empty, right? It just need to check, okay, if there is a valid move or not.
Okay, so we can pass it empty, but if you think of it, if I'm passing it empty, right, it's going to check all the rows, columns, diagonals, right? That's going to be a complexity of what, 1 2 3 4 5 6 o n squared or something, right? But if I pass in the xy, it's just, this is an x, so it's going to check this, right? Like front, diagonal, and this from this point. So it literally makes the complexity from on square to on, right? And now, like I said, it could be a tic-tac-toe board of a million rows, right? Let's say someone build a multiplayer game on top of it, right? But there's a million rows and 1,000 people are playing. So passing the xy should be a decision that should be taken, right? That's why it's something I would want you to, be able to solve yourself in future lectures, right? And we'll be building complete code from now on, once we go like 10 lectures in or something. But xy, and then we have logic for seeing if in the same row, column, or diagonal, right? Diagonal, uh, call sign is same, right? Call sign is same. I can either pass the call sign, or it's just going to be the cell, right? Cell which I'm passing in, right? So if it's the same, then return true, else return false, right? Game is not over yet. If the game is over, then you return true, and that basically goes here, and it just prints out that, hey, this player has won the game, right? So we can print here only. We can write a boolean print or something, print winner. So this is a simple code, right? Good code for getting started. So what I want you guys to do right now is write this logic. Very simple, just board, player, move, enum, cell, and then there's a main function where you basically write down the logic, and you're going to compile it. You can use your own choice. You can code in Java also, no issues, right? So I'm sharing it in the group, and uh, we'll do it together and see that who does it fast, right? I'll also do it with you guys, right? Hello. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, good.
Hi.
Yeah,
Hi
tell me.
everyone.
Yeah, tell me.
No, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I was just acknowledging your
Okay,
thing.
cool. And I hope that the previous question was clear to you guys. Maybe we spend 10 more minutes, if any of you guys have any questions, right? And then we'll start the exercise at 11, right? And see who does it fast, right? Um, yeah,
Okay,
any
so
yeah.
I'm very new to this group, so
Okay,
and also I have like drop in between, and I have joined like 5 minutes late as well.
okay.
So can you just like just wanted to uh, know about this group, what kind of community we have,
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah,
definitely.
maybe
So
the-
yeah, great question. So two more people are new, I think. So basically, we solve, we do this HLD, LLD discussions together, and all videos go on YouTube, so you can update yourself from there also, right? And like I said, right now we are doing an exercise, and then I think we'll next connect on Thursday, and we'll again do another exercise, right? And so that way, the goal is for me, right? I'm not very good in DSA, right? But I'm still trying to learn that. But LLD and HLD I'm really good at, is what I believe, right? I might be completely wrong here, but my goal is that each one of you should be equally good in that, LLD and HLD in the least, right? You should be able to do any questions, right? Even if it's like, like he just said that, Mrityunjay said that, it's come like for a 1 year person, is this question too hard or something like that? So even if it's too hard, right, even if he gives you a very hard question, you should be able to do that, right? So that's kind of my goal here with this group. And um, yeah, that's kind of all, right? I hope it's clear, right?
yeah, yeah, Ramit. Now it's clear. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
that's
So mostly we are going to meet in like 2 times a week,
two to
and
three
we
times, I think.
two to
Yeah,
three times a week.
yeah.
Okay. At the same time, or like time will be varying accordingly on the.
At 10 p.m., sometimes weekdays, mostly weekends, right? Because
Yeah.
people are more free on weekends, and we'll be
Okay.
doing this. So right now, I think we did around 16. How many sessions we did? 10 to 15 sessions on HLD, I think we have done, right? So we'll do
Yeah.
15-20 more sessions on HLD, but we are mixing LLD sessions in between. In total, there will be 30 HLD and 30 LLD sessions, and then we'll see that if you guys are able to do those really hard questions, and then maybe we'll
Mhm.
have 30 more sessions if you're not able to do, right? We'll continue that uh, until all of you guys are good, like really good, not like just decent good,
Mhm.
but really good.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the goal. Okay, so
Okay.
if no one has any questions, we'll start the exercise, right? Okay, cool. Dropping off, right? Yeah,
Yeah, hi Ramit. I
yeah,
had a
Parag.
question.
Yeah,
Actually, that question which we did earlier, actually the main question was to like persist the data into the database, and we have to keep the we have to show the status of how much data has been transferred to the database, right?
yeah,
So how the track, how can we keep that track? As in, how will we know how much of the data is being transferred from that file to our database? So we have to show that as well, no?
yeah.
So I didn't understand that take, like how the progress will be maintained, and as in if you're getting the data in the form of chunks from that file, right? So how the system will know that it has processed first 100 records, and then it needs to continue from the 100th record for the second time, and so on.
Got it. So, like I told you, we break it down into multiple steps. Okay, 3 steps. First step, right? From your local device, you're uploading a 1 GB, 2 GB, 1 TB file. Okay, so from your local device, you have a node stream or whatever package, using that stream, it goes into S3 if it's AWS, into blob storage if it's Azure, right? So from your local device, the entire file goes into your S3. That is step one. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, step one, right? Your entire thing is gone. Step one, operation one, done. Step two, okay, you have the file in your local storage, right? Now this is one thing that I mentioned, that your if it's a 1 GB file, right, that has been moved from your local storage to your Azure, to your blob storage or to your S3 bucket, then your lambda function that is going to process the file will also need to have a memory of at least more than 1 GB, 1.5 or 2 GB or something, right? It needs to be a lot more than the file that is being processed, right? So if you want to process a 4 GB file, you need to first figure out a way to break it in your local, in step one itself, into 4 chunks and then send it to S3, right? in S3 1 GB file, and I have a lambda function which can process a 1 GB file which can take it into memory, right? So my lambda function took that file into memory, and it processed the file and it broke that file down into thousands of hundreds of whatever JSON files of 200. Each JSON file has 200 rows in it, right? That part is clear. Part 2. Hello.
Okay.
No,
Okay,
that
yes.
step 2 is clear to you, right? And at any point, if
Yes.
when it's breaking it into JSON, if you can have a lot of log, you can have your own logic, right? If something happens, you delete that temp folder, or you restart the process, or you do fail safes, basic fail safes, right? So right now you have a folder known as a temp folder which has a JSON file, and each JSON is 200 units. You have maybe 100 JSON files, right? So now step 3, right? Step 3, function 3, you take each of those JSON. You start with 001, you go to 002, 3, 4. You take each of those JSON and you push it into AWS. Sorry, you push it into the database, right? And you don't send a WebSocket. Maybe you just update a table, and the phone, it long polls, and it gets that, okay, one file has been sent, two file has been sent, three file has been out of 300 JSON, right? 3 JSON has been processed, right? And you do that. You maintain records in your database, right? Where, okay, one has been processed, because you have to persist that, because your server might crash, and then you are left with a bunch of JSON. You don't know how many you have processed, how many you have not processed. It's a durable function, right? Or a long kind of function that goes on maybe for 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, right? So in between anything can happen, so you have to persist that, right? So this step 3 is clear to you, or where is your question? Is it in step 3?
Yeah, that was in the step 3 only.
Okay, so do you still have a question there?
So,
Yeah.
so are we splitting it into lambda, or
No,
as
no.
in the split?
Yeah, I broke your
Where are we split?
complex. Yeah, where are we in the lambda? Like I said, na, we take a big lambda, we take that big Excel file and we split it into hundreds and thousands of small files, and we again store it back into S3.
Okay, okay, okay. I
So
got
this
it.
is a one operation. If it fails, the whole thing fails. Then we again do it. We delete the temp files and we again do it, right?
Okay, got it now.
So we'll
Oh, yeah, I have follow-up question on this.
okay.
So, like, we are splitting this file so that Lambda can process that small files for the further DB insertions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but we're using Lambda itself to split it. But how we are going to load that in Lambda? Like, there will be memory limit, right? Because at first time we have to load full file at that point, no?
Yeah, that's why I
Then only we
said,
are
no,
able to
in
split it.
in step 2, right? In step 2, where you are loading that lambda into memory, if you need to ensure that if you have a 1 GB file, your lambda should have a memory capacity of 1.5 GB. If it's more than a 1 GB file and your lambda does not have a memory capacity, then you have to figure out that in step 1 itself, that you split that file and then only you send. So that's why you define limits to your systems at various steps. That's why it's split into different steps, right?
Got it. And like returning the progress back to user is basically just like progress of upload or progress to like insertion in DB. It
That's
will be
your
simply file upload.
that's your decision. You can upload that, okay, that my file has been processed, or I've created these JSON files, and now each JSON is getting pushed into the database and I'm going to return back, right?
Okay.
Makes sense, right? So yeah, this is a very common question. I would want you guys to be extremely clear, because I think all of you guys have been asked this, like if you've given interviews, right? You guys will be asked this in future. Okay. But yeah, cool. Okay, I guess
I
we'll
have
start.
I have
Yeah.
one more question on this. Like while processing the JSON file in the DB,
Okay.
we are doing it individually. Like we will go with first once it's finished, we will pick the second file, right?
Yeah.
Or we can like do it parallelly, like with multiple core or something.
Pipe. Yeah, Jason. Yeah, like I said, we can do it. That's why I'm breaking the large file into smaller files, right? So we can parallelly process them.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. Cool. I think this is great. This is great. Okay. So yeah, we start the exercise then, right? Cool. Okay. I'm dropping off, right?